Hi all, we are back with a very interesting talk. It's will be really amazing talk today. We all will be very curious to know a story from Phillip Wyile. It's from Chokeslams to Pwnage, journey from pro wrestling to offensive security. So RedTeam Security Summit always promised the best talks, and we are glad that we could make. Phillip Wyile, no need for any introduction, I believe. He's a well-known person in the Infosec domain. Phillip Wyile is a senior cloud penetration tester with a US bank. He's a passionate offensive security professional with over 23 years of IT and cybersecurity experience. He's a penetration tester, instructor, speaker, mentor, and publisher. Mr. Phillip Wyile is the author of the bestseller book, The Pentester Blueprint, which essentially the guide for many of the penetration testers or entry professionals across the globe. His contribution to the cybersecurity domain beyond is actually beyond the boundaries and is very remarkable. And we really thank and appreciate you for joining us today. The stage is yours, sir. Thank you so much. Looking forward.
Thanks for that great introduction. It's an honor to be here. So thanks everyone for joining. It's kind of interesting. This talk that I'm giving today is I've actually mentioned pieces of this or parts of this, but not in great detail on previous conference talks. And one of the things I was excited to give this talk today is because it's a way to encourage people, because whenever I graduated high school, I wasn't sure what I was going to do for a living. I didn't know what kind of career I was going to have, what area I'd work in. I didn't have any idea, and I really wasn't confident in myself and my mental abilities. I was a power lifter, and my physical I was confident in, but my mental abilities I really wasn't that confident in. So this is why this story is special to me. I like to share this to let people know that you can do anything you want to. If I could do this, then you can do it. It just takes time and effort to achieve your goals, and don't let anyone tell you you can't do anything. So here's kind of they was mentioned during my introduction, but just kind of an overview. I'm an offensive cybersecurity professional, an educator. I taught at Dallas College up until the summer semester, which I was there 3 years and 8 months. And teaching really was a big stepping stone for me, because prior to teaching, I was doing a lot of mentoring. And so this kind of encouraged me to do more mentoring, to get more in the education side of things. I started the Pwn School project, which was 2 monthly meetings in Texas where we'd meet, and more of the focus of the stuff was geared towards teaching people that are trying to get into the industry, or maybe if you're wanting to learn about pen testing, you're coming over from some other side of security. The goal was to make it more educational. And it's been kind of a plan developing in a while to proceed with the evolution of the Pwn School project. So one of the things I'm looking at is to start, turning it more educational. And so be on the watch out in 2022 to see that possibly getting started up. My vision is to offer like a free pen testing course, a guided course, to help people learn how to become pen testers. I'm also the founder of the DEF CON group, or DC Group 940. I started that in Denton, Texas, my hometown, and that kind of replaced my Pwn School Denton meeting, because we had 2 meetings, and I started the DEF CON group to help bring more people into our meetings, which actually has helped, because when people look through the DEF CON group list, they find different meeting groups in different areas. And so I was hoping that would be a way to grow the group, and it's kind of helped, because we started back in-person meetings probably about around May of this year, because the pandemic kind of shut a lot of in-person stuff down. So starting the DEF CON group, we officially became a DEF CON group because I started the Pwn School Denton meetings back up in May. August, I applied to start a DEF CON group, and then we got approval for that like in October, I believe. And so, as mentioned, the Pentester Blueprint, I am the concept creator and co-author. The idea came out of my lectures in class each semester. So the very first class I taught, I wanted to do a presentation to share with my students how to become a pen tester and also the knowledge you needed to start learning pen testing, the prerequisite knowledge. So that's where that talk came from. And other professors at the college would ask me to come in and share this talk with their cybersecurity students. So I would share that with their students. And so I gave that talk the first time in January of 2018. By November of 2018, I submitted a talk to my local security B-Sides conference, B-Sides DFW, which is short for B-Sides Dallas Fort Worth. So that was the first time I gave that talk. And I submitted it to other conferences, and it's very popular. There's a lot of books out there on pen testing, a lot of great books on the skill of pen testing, but no one was really sharing. You need to know networking, you need to know operating systems to become a pen tester. So I saw that missing piece, and so I was in the Tribe of Hackers Red Team book, and I had the publisher Wyile Publishing reach out to me and ask me if I was interested in writing a book. And I'd been thinking for a while after giving the talk that maybe it was a good idea to make a book out of that talk based on the talk. And so that's where the book came about. And so I also host a podcast called the Hacker Factory Podcast on ITSP Magazine. And this one's a really good one if you're just getting started in pen testing, wanted to get started in pen testing, or hear from some different people in the industry of how they got started and the knowledge they share. So that one is a special interest to people trying to get started out in the industry. And this could be, you could be working in other areas. Maybe you want to move into pen testing. Maybe you're just interested in pen testing. So you might want to recommend that you check that out. And I produce a episode each week. So it's a weekly podcast. So some of the roles I had during my cybersecurity career is my offensive cybersecurity career is pen testing consultant. My very first job was consulting as a penetration tester. I'd spent my first 5 years doing that. And kind of my current role is a corporate pen tester. So I work for a large bank doing pen tests for them. And I've also worked as a red team lead. And also I was an offensive cybersecurity instructor for a couple different companies, as well as the college I taught at. And for a while, I did that teaching full time and then pen testing as on the side just to keep up my skills. But these are some of the roles that I've had. Some of my community contributions, I'm big on community. I love mentoring and teaching. That's why I do a lot of the things I do. I stay, I don't know, sometimes my outside of work activities keep me busier than everything else in my life. So, I've mentioned the two groups that I started up. I do a lot of conference speaking. I really enjoy speaking at conferences. Thanks to the Red Team Summit for asking me to speak. And I really am glad to see all the virtual conferences that kept going during the pandemic, because conferences is one of my favorite things to do. And without the virtual conferences, I would have been, pretty depressed. So that gave me something to do during the pandemic to still be able to speak. But there's nothing like being in person, the way you're able to connect with people. I enjoy networking and connecting with people. Along with speaking at conferences, I also teach conference workshops, usually under my Pwn School brand. I do a lot of mentoring. I was doing mentoring before I got into teaching, because I would find individuals that wanted to become pen testers and they would ask me how to get started or study recommendations for the OSCP certification. So that's kind of how I got started there. And that's really what got me interested in teaching, because I thought, teaching might be interesting. The college where my wife was going, they were getting ready to start an ethical hacking class, and her instructor announced that they were going to start the class if they can find an instructor. And so my wife said, hey, my husband might be interested. He's a pen tester, and he's said he might be interested in teaching one day. So I sent them the resume, and they really didn't take her too serious, and I sent him my resume and a short cover letter, and he got back with me and hired me to teach. And so this helped me take my mentoring on a broader scale. So I started teaching in January of 2018. And then by May, the class was about getting ready to end for the semester. And my students wanted to know other places where they could go to learn, because the college didn't offer any other ethical hacking classes. So I decided to start the Pwn School project. And so the intent was to meet with students on the weekend and help teach them different type of pen testing techniques and technologies. And I got a lot of volunteers from the community to come present. And so it's been more of a meetup type format or a meeting type format, but the goal is to take it to be more educational. So that's something I'm looking to start in 2022, because it's just been monthly meetups. And so now I'm really wanting to move more into that, record different lectures and stuff, and give students assignments to help learn pen testing. So help guide them a little more hands-on than just, giving them a book or some slides to go by, or just a one-time presentation. So I'm really looking forward to finally getting that started up. So content creation, I've got interested in content creation. Probably one of the first things that really got me started in that area, I was a Bug Crowd ambassador. And for Bug Crowd, I did a webinar series called Inside the Mind of a Pen Tester. That was a 5-episode webinar series. And then they came back in 2019, actually 2020, and asked me to do another series. It was a 2-part series on pen testing. So that's really where I got started into the content creation piece of things. So I was on a podcast that I co-hosted with Chloe Mistagi and Alyssa Miller. We did that for close to a year, and ITSP Magazine reached out to us and asked us if we was interested in doing our own podcast, which we were. I was able to do something that I'm more passionate about, teaching people about pen testing. And so the focus of a lot of things I do is trying to help people get started in the industry. And so in 2018, right before DEF CON and Black Hat, in 2018, I become a Bug Crowd ambassador. And part of that was to try to help people get started in the industry, learn more about bug bounties and do more educational stuff there. And this was really good because that helped me really kick off my more of the content creation stuff. I was wanting to speak at conferences. I'd previously spoke in 2015 at a conference, and I didn't speak at another conference until the towards the end of 2018. And part of that was I didn't know what to speak on. And so by teaching and mentoring, it gave me something to speak about, something I'm passionate about. Yeah, we're going to have, so we got a question here real quick. I'm going to answer. So someone says, while there are several fields in cybersecurity, what drew you to pen testing? Pen testing, I got interested in pen testing during my, I guess actually when I first got into cybersecurity, and maybe even before, a little bit before that, I had Ed Scotus's book, Hack and Counter Hack, and it came with a CD, and it had different vulnerable ISOs on there. It basically gave you a little home lab to hack in. But when I really got interested in pen testing was during my application security career. I got to run web application vulnerability scanners. I was using AppScan, and I was managing third-party pen tests. So that's what kind of got me interested. I'd heard of ethical hacking, but didn't really realize that it was actually a career that I could work in. If you go to, let me see, I'll go ahead and put the link up in here. And one of the things I want to share at the end, I'll share some links and stuff, but I have a link tree, and you can find everything I do, including the link to my Twitch channel and stuff too. But I'll go ahead and put this in the chat for folks to be able to find. That's how you can find my podcast. And I've had people on there such as Alyssa Knight and Dave Kennedy on the pen test, Chris Hadnaggy. Next week, I'm excited to be releasing the episode with IPSEC. So I've had John Hammond on there, the Cyber Mentor, the Mayor Joe Helly, uh, uh, ABX. Some of you may know from the Red Team, the DEF CON Red Team Village. He was one of my guests on the show. And so, yeah, we've got a lot of, I mean, up to, I think, 40 episodes. I think the latest one, IPSEC, will be 40, which comes out next week. So the bug crowd thing really got me motivated to get into more of the mentoring and helping people out. So this is kind of I found my calling. But to kind of share my story, where things all began when I graduated from high school back in 1984. We had computers in our school. We had like some IBM computers. We also had just got some Mac computers in the art lab. And so I never had worked with computers or really I didn't have the vision and the forethought to see that this is going to be something big. I should learn computers. But then goes back to thinking, I was a power lifter. I'd played football in high school, and, I just thought I was, just some big dumb guy or whatever, and just didn't think that I had the mental capacity to do that. So my story starts. So when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a career, and some of my classmates said, you lift weights, you're a big guy, you should go into pro wrestling. So I went to a pro wrestling school, learned how to wrestle, and I don't know how many of you all keep up with wrestling much, but probably one of the bigger names I wrestled was Mick Foley. He was wrestling in Dallas at the time. And I actually if you check out my YouTube channel, I've got some videos of my wrestling matches, but you can see on the left-hand side, there's a picture of one of the matches that I did in my hometown. And then on the right, there was a 750-pound bear that I wrestled back during that time. I was a bouncer at a nightclub working security because I didn't make enough money as a pro wrestler, so I had to supplement my income with another job. And so the nightclub that I worked at, they brought in a bear on a Sunday. They had different events to try to bring in a crowd because usually, the nightclub was slow on Sundays, and so they'd have special events. So that picture is for me wrestling the bear. That was back in 1987. I was around 22 years old or so then. So I wrestled for a couple years, and then I got married and needed a more stable income. And so during that time between being a pro wrestler and eventually becoming a CAD drafter, I worked in manual labor. I worked for companies where we put roofs on houses, built fences for different other companies. I worked in a jewelry store selling jewelry. I worked in a restaurant, washing dishes, bussing tables, cooking, all this stuff. I really didn't enjoy any of those jobs. And I kind of learned that I needed to do something with my career because one of the jewelry stores I worked in was a family-owned jewelry store. And I knew the brothers that owned the jewelry store, and they opened a new jewelry chain, and they wanted me to work there. And they had said that if I come to work for them, that they'd like for me to be assistant manager and eventually move into management. So I went to work there, and the guy that managed the store, there was another person working there that he thought was more fit or liked them better for the role. And it was plain to see that I wasn't going to get the opportunity. And so at this point, I'd been through different jobs through my career where I went to work at a certain company doing certain things and expected some kind of advancement or career growth, but it wasn't there and the money wasn't there. So one day I was watching television, and on the TV, I saw an advertisement for the American Trades Institute, and it was for an AutoCAD based course for CAD drafting. And so it was a 1-year school. I went there, and when I was younger, I always liked to draw. And so I thought this is a way to kind of leverage something that I was interested in and something that I did have some skill in when I was younger. So I took this course. And actually, to back up, it was really more of a program. It was kind of, some similarities to what you would see in a university. We had of course, for drafting, you need to have a good understanding of math. So we had trigonometry courses, algebra courses, and all this stuff required. Although a lot of the things you can do in AutoCAD doesn't really require some of those skills, we did do math. We also had a typing class because we're going to use a computer. When I started this program, I really didn't have any experience with computers, didn't know how to use computers. So through that course, I learned how to, through that program, I learned how to type. We learned how to do manual drafting. So we had like pencils and even some ink pens for special types of drafting and all of our tools for doing manual drafting. So we spent all that time doing the manual drafting. We learned how to do mechanical drawings. We learned how to do architectural drawings. Also, different various things that you would do in drafting to get the skills you need. So I did that for a while, completed the program, got a job working in AutoCAD or in CAD. And the first place I worked for was a company that designed the electronic security systems for prisons. So we did a lot of electrical drawings. We would draw details on how where the door locks were, where the access, like we have car access in our buildings. There's different types of electronic access they use in the prisons because if in case of emergency they need to be able to release everyone, so they had panels where they could push a button to open all the cell doors. They had entrances into the buildings that need to be more secure to bring prisoners in and out, and when people are leaving the building and coming in, to let people in and out safely without releasing prisoners. So we did the drawings for those as well as the control panels. So you have these, if you think of like a SOC center or a NOC, where they got all the panels to monitor traffic and stuff. In these prisons, they had these panels that would monitor whether the doors were open or shut, and the cameras, and we draw the details for that. So that's where I got started. And I worked for an architect. I'd worked for a company that made steel frame buildings. And I worked for a company. My last CAD drafting job was working for a company that made fiberglass grating, because in highly corrosive environments, you can't use steel because the chemicals will eat away at it. It'll rust and eventually deteriorate. So you need to use something like a fiberglass plastic mixture to be able to withstand these environments. So that was the last job I had. And while I was in that job, I discovered that I had a talent for computers and IT. Most of those companies were small. The last company I worked at was, out of all those companies, was the only one that really had an IT staff. There was the person that did the accounting, did some of the IT stuff. And I kind of figured out how to I taught myself how to build computers because I got more interested in what the people on the IT side was doing. I saw a sysadmin that came in consulting for us at one of the companies I worked at prior to my last job. And they were getting getting double the bill rate that we did for drafting, which led me to believe that they were getting double the money that we were making. So I thought, this seems a lot more interesting and it's a lot easier to learn for me. So I taught myself how to build computers. And then while I was at my last job, I took a Novell NetWare course. So I was working through that while I was there. So I was a CAD drafter for a little over 4 years or so. And as I mentioned, while I was there, my last job, I taught myself how to build PCs. And then I also took a Novell NetWare C&E training course before Microsoft really got popular. And before they came out with directory services, most companies were using Novell NetWare, or that was mainly what was in their environment. They may have had some Microsoft in their environment, but back then, before directory services, it was harder to manage the users on systems. So I took a Novell NetWare course, and my first job was on a installation or upgrade of servers because this company, CompuCom, in the field, they were running older versions of Novell NetWare, and they were actually using a version older than NetWare 4.11. So we were upgrading to NetWare 4.11. We were migrating email over from their email servers, and we also replaced their operating systems on their desktops, Windows 95. So this was a good entry point. And where the value I got in this job was, if you're going to be a pen tester, you need to understand the technology that you're going to test. So I got that understanding from doing being a sysadmin. You understand the security, you understand how to add users, configure firewalls, and all that. So this was very helpful when I finally decided to get into security and then into pen testing. So I spent like a little over 6 years in that area. I got interested in security before I got to move over. I'd actually applied for a security role within the company I was working for, and that didn't work out because I was working as a contractor, and one of the hiring managers said you need to decide whether you're going to take the security job or the sysadmin job. You've got the sysadmin job, but you still have to, get through the interview process, and we're not going to hold the job for you because we need someone right away. So that was in 2001. So I had to kind of pass on the security role and continue on in my sysadmin role. And then by January of 2004, I got my first security position, which I was very excited about. Prior to that, I got my CISSP. How I was able to get my CISSP was through my sysadmin experience. I'd worked on some server security. I also did physical security as a security guard back in my younger days when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. Also, I worked at the company that designed physical security for prisons. So I had that to be able to take the CISSP exam. I took the CISSP wanting to really get into security. There was a point where I worked for a company for 90 days, but got laid off. The company had to make cutbacks, and I worked on a team. We were supporting Linux appliances that ran Checkpoint Firewall 1 and Checkpoint VPN. So that really got me interested in security. And so, like I said, in January of 2004, I finally got to move into security. So my first job was an information security analyst role. And it was interesting. The group I worked in, they called it data security. So the names over the years have evolved. Information security was a more popular term. And nowadays you've got, cybersecurity, and it's ever evolving. There's, I'm sure and won't be surprised if they change, if the name is updated down the road, just like vulnerability management is kind of more referred to as attack surface management or attack surface reduction nowadays, which is a more fitting role. But time goes on. But it's just interesting that data security was the name of the role. And I also took another certification course during that time. It was through the National Security Agency, the NSA, the US's NSA department. They had a certification course called the Infosec Assessment Methodology. And the interesting thing about the methodology of this is it was all based on, they did include like electronic files, but to teach the concepts, they were talking about paper files, the way you'd store them in a file cabinet, the way you would lock them away when you're away from your desk, how you would protect files. And it kind of really gave me a better understanding of the overall concept of information security. Not really the details on how you create firewall rules, how you protect things, but just the why you need to, which was very important for me. So during this first role, I did some network and system vulnerability scans. We also performed risk assessments for different groups within the company, different departments. Did firewall management, also did some firewall migrations. We were running Sunscreen, which is a very old firewall, and we migrated from Sunscreen. I think it was a Sun Microsystems product, but we migrated from that to a PIX Cisco firewall back then. Also managed the CyberGuard firewalls during that time. Also did intrusion detection management. Intrusion prevention had came out at that time, but companies just really weren't adopting it yet, because if there's a false alert and then things get blocked, then they were worried about, it hurting production. And so I was in that role for about 1 year and 9 months. And the company I worked for hired a new CISO, and he had worked for other companies. I think the CISO we had at the time, actually may not even been officially a CISO, was a security manager. His experience with security was within an organization. So they brought in someone that had industry experience and worked in different companies. And he kind of divided our group up into different areas. So the role I described before, the 4 or 5 people on our team, I think it's like 5 of us, we all did the same thing. We all did the same thing every day. and there was no difference in what we did. So this new CISO come in, and he divided our group up into different areas. So the firewalls and all that, you had your network security or operations security team that managed that. And so fortunately, I got put on the application security team. Never really had any idea that that was something I want to do, but I really enjoyed it because we got to run DASTs. So AppScan, back then it was like Firewatch AppScan when I first started using it. And then it got acquired by IBM shortly after that. And now, as everyone knows, probably knows if you're familiar with the application security space, HCL owns and maintains that product now. So I got to do web application vulnerability scans. I didn't get to do pen testing, but I got to manage third-party web application pen tests. So I would work with the consultants. I would oversee the remediation. Once we got these reports in, I would work with the consultants to schedule the report readout meetings where they would discuss the report and the findings. And then I'd work with the different groups for the vulnerability remediation, oversee that. And so some of this is some of this is things that should have been removed for slide, the intrusion detection. That piece was on the other job, but I did get to implement web application single sign-on. We used something called Clear Trust from RSA, and it was like a single sign-on solution for the different applications. It allowed us to leverage active. Let's see, by that time, no, we weren't Active Directory yet. We were still using Novell Directory Services. So we're able to use directory services, and we had an instance for vendors that was standalone that segregated the two directory services from each other. And I was also like the application security SME. So anytime they were getting new products, they're implementing stuff, I'd be involved in those discussions to help them make sure that they were implementing things more securely. So I did that for 6 years and 10 months. And so in 2012, I got laid off from my job. And I like to share this story too, because I'd worked there for that company for a while, and I got laid off. I was really interested in pen testing. I wanted to be a pen tester, but my experience was sysadmin, information security, application security. I've run some vulnerability scanners, but I didn't have the hacking experience required to be a pen tester. And my vulnerability scanning experience and all that was pretty limited. But the hiring manager that I talked to at the consulting company, it was for Verizon. It was working in their consulting division. When I spoke with the hiring manager, I told him what I was doing to learn, that I had a home lab, that I taught myself how to build websites. And I did that for a side business, that I hosted Red Hat Linux with Apache web server to host my clients' websites. And he really liked that because he taught us, as far as pen testers go, to learn how to build things. If you understand how to build things, you understand how to secure things, and you understand how to break into it. Because when you install Apache web server, you get a better understanding of where the files are at, the directory structure, how it should be secured. And so he liked that, and he gave me a chance. So fortunately, I went to work for the company. I didn't know how to do hacking, so I started the OSCP course to start building my hacking skills. And so I started the OSCP back in like April, May of 2012, and then got my certification in June of 2013. And so my first 5 years as a pen tester, I worked as a consultant. So I did network pen testing, including your wired Ethernet networks, and Wi-Fi networks, connected networks. Also did application pen testing. Most of the stuff I did was web, and did some mobile and some binary or thick client applications. And I got to do some social engineering. Not a lot of it, but I did, over my career, I've done some physical building assessments, trying to gain unauthorized access, doing social engineering, including vishing and phishing, creating websites to look like customer websites to get draw them to the website to collect information. So it was a really good experience. And I would recommend to anyone that if you're getting started out, you ever have the chance to be a consultant, I highly recommend it. I did it for 5 years, and I do work for some consultants on the side. But one of the things I learned a lot really quickly, but back during that time, consultants had to travel a lot. So I would be gone on projects that lasted 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and I wanted to be home more. So I ended up going to work as an internal corporate pen tester. And so you can see that my corporate offensive cybersecurity career includes pen tester, which is the role I'm in now, the cloud pen testing role at US Bank. I'd worked here previously, and I'd left to go to work for another company as a red team lead. And I worked at that company for a while, leading a red team. So my corporate experience, and it's interesting to get to see the differences because, working in a corporate environment, you typically have more time to pen test. When you're hiring a consultant, the company has a budget and they can only afford so much pen testing from consultants. With a pen test that I would have as a consultant I would only be given a week. Whereas in a corporate pen tester, I've got 4 weeks to do the same pen test. And what that allows me as a pen tester, that gives me more time to test. If you've got a short period of time, sometimes it's harder to find things. And that's like one of the beauties of bug bounty. That's one of the things companies like about bug bounties for their web app pen tests is you've got someone testing constantly. Sometimes there's time limits, but typically not. And so with pen testing, it's all, the depth you can test is going to be determined by the amount of time you have to test. And the red team lead was a very interesting experience because, a lot of times people refer to all of offensive security as red teaming, but true red teaming is adversary emulation, trying to test and go undetected. So that was a really interesting experience. And so some of my offensive instructor experience. So I taught at Dallas College for 3 years and 8 months. This is really important in my career because it just really taught me that teaching was a good area for me to go into because I'm patient with people. I'm a good listener and I enjoy helping others out. So I did that for 3 years, 8 months. And for a while I worked for Point3 Federal, which rebranded as P3F. We did offensive cybersecurity training content for the DoD, for the U.S. government, different military sections of the U.S. military used that type of training. And then I worked at I&E for 6 months. And during the time while I was working full-time teaching at P3F and I&E, I was still working as a consultant to keep my skills up. It was hard to get away from pen testing. And so what I finally did is I went back to pen testing, left I&E, went back to work as a pen tester, and decided to do the teaching more as a part-time thing. And I really saw that if you're wanting to teach a certain subject, especially like offensive security, I think it really helps to be active in that role, keeping up with the new things to be able to be a better instructor. So I kind of decided that, I should be a full-time offensive security professional and then teach part-time. And so I quit teaching at the end of the summer for Dallas College, but I'm actively teaching conference workshops. So a lot of the different B-Sides conferences, the Women's Cyber Jitsu Security Group, I've done workshops for them. So that's something I enjoy doing in my spare time, as well as I also stream once a week. And on some of my streams, sometimes I do technical talks, but more lately has been interviewing people that got into the industry so I can share with other people that are trying to get started in offensive security on how they got into those roles. And one of the things I've really enjoyed about being an instructor is, how good it feels to help others get jobs in the industry, to teach them something. It's really, rewarding. And so if you ever get the chance to mentor or teach, you should definitely check it out. It's worth experiencing. Plus, as a teacher, you get to learn certain things better. So when you're teaching concepts over and over, you get to learn it even better. And it's actually kind of helped me learn some of the basics better, get a better understanding of some of the basics from the teaching. And so, as I mentioned before, the title of this talk came from an article, an interview that Sarah Jellin from Security Trails did on me back in August. And the link is there. And so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And there is my Linktree link. On Linktree, There's links to my podcast. There's links to my YouTube channel. And on my YouTube channel, I uploaded my lectures from the ethical hacking class I taught, which is based on the Pentest Plus. And not only is it the content based on the Pentest Plus, it is also, me sharing my personal experience on pen testing. We use the Pentest Plus manual in the class, but I also shared, my experience as a professional pen tester. So Linktree to get all the other things and all the other information on me and stuff, my YouTube channel. But I am very active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So if we get to do Q&A here today, then I'll definitely answer your questions. But if you think of something later on, feel free to reach out to me and please connect with me. I enjoy building my network. I'm constantly sharing projects I work on, which usually entails some kind of education opportunities. And recently had the opportunity to create one of the walkthroughs for Try Hack Me. They asked me to do day 10 of their Advent of Cyber challenge. So I'm constantly posting stuff up on there. So please connect with me. And if you have any questions, you can contact me there. And so that kind of wraps up my presentation. So we can open up to questions.
Thank you so much, Phillip sir. It was an amazing session. I hope everyone around here was motivated with your story into the pen testing and information security. Audience, do you have any doubt? So the podcast link we shared earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things out of this, if anyone gets, is just understand that you can do whatever you want to. Don't let anyone discourage you. Sometimes you think there's things that you think are impossible, but it just takes trying it. I mean, that's, just sometimes just get out there, try it, get it started. Yes, I'm on Instagram. And if you go to my Linktree link, then you can find my Instagram on there. But yes, I'm on Instagram. And one of the things I'm planning to do more of is after doing the Try Hack Me walkthrough, I'm wanting to create more YouTube content, and I plan to I'll be sharing more of that on Instagram. But yeah, I'm on Instagram too, so please connect with me there as well.
Great. Sir, one question from Mohammed Sajid. So what to say to the people who are wishing to shift the current career position to a cybersecurity?
Yes, one of the things I'm going to say is you can go the just certification route, or you can go through a university, and you can do either one. But one of the things I'm going to say, and you hear there's some people in the industry that are kind of negative towards degrees and universities, but where I see the advantages of universities, if you go to a university, there's opportunities for internships. It's hard to get an internship if you're not going through a university. Also, it's structured learning. If you don't understand security, then you've got someone to guide you along the way. You're usually exposed to different types of security, but you can always go the route of certifications. The CompTIA stuff is pretty good. Professor Messer has free videos on his website, so check out Professor Messer's videos. You probably can even find them on YouTube. The videos are free. I think he's got some paid content, but you can learn that content there about security. Attending conferences. Pen testing is fun, but make sure you check out all the different options. There may be something you enjoy better. I mean, because incident response is a really interesting and much needed area. When companies get breached, you need incident response people to figure out what happened. And so, check out some different, go into different meetings. You're different because I know you have like nullcon groups there or null groups, go to meetings like that, OWASP meetings, and the thing is try to listen to as many different people as you can, because someone may explain something different that you understand better. You may relate to their story. Because I've had several people on my podcast that people just would reach out to them, said, hey, one of my friends that I work with, I interviewed him for my podcast. We both met when we were CAD drafters, and someone reached out to him because they were a CAD drafter and a drafting teacher. So just get out there, try Hack Me. has good content on there. I really like that it's educational and it's hands-on. You need the hands-on piece. Uh, Snaplabs.io, they have a really good free lab. You have to have like uh, an AWS account, but from what I understand, you can get free credits from AWS, and so you can set up labs on there. They even have like a lab set up for using Splunk. So they have like the commercial version of Splunk, so you can go in there and learn how to use Splunk. You can build Active Directory labs in there. They have Kali Linux, so if you want to build your own home lab. So yeah, the home lab, that's so home labs. One of the things I really like now is try hack me and hack the box, the online labs, because you can build your own home labs. You can download stuff from VulnHub, but sometimes there's just so many good resources like Over the Wire and Under the Wire CTF. These are free lab resources online. And so the cloud stuff is very important to get started in, because that's one of the things too, is there's a lot of pen testers that really haven't gotten into the cloud piece yet. And, companies need cloud pen testers. And one of the things I also want to share too, while I'm thinking about it with people that are in India. When I was at Kimberly-Clark, I was looking for a red team person in India, and I had a hard time because a lot of people were focusing on web application pen testing. And so it's hard to find network pen testing. So if you get the network pen testing skills, then you can learn to be a red teamer. So that may be opportunities for you there, because companies are going global. They don't want, if you've got a company in India, you don't want everyone to have to stay up around the clock, when you can have someone in Singapore, or someone in Japan, someone in Canada or Mexico, and different places. So as companies become more global, it's good to learn those other skill sets. Web app pen testing is good, and there's a lot of opportunities there. But to know the network stuff, it took me a while to find someone. I found two people that were qualified, and due to the HR process, it took too long to make this one gentleman an offer. And so it took us like 6 months to find a red teamer. So someone said, I read this from a vlog. Company hires highly educated people for penetration testing jobs or any other jobs, have multiple skills in the same field, cybersecurity, but company usually making them rely upon automation tools, not utilizing skills of a hired person, which makes it weak in the field. Is this true? Nah, there's some things that you may use for automation, but they're really not automating pen testing yet. A lot of companies talk about using AI and machine learning to replace pen testing, but they're not there yet. And my views on machine learning and AI, what I think is going to happen is they're going to build better pen testing tools. So some of the easy, tedious stuff that's no fun, that you don't like to do, these tools are going to replace that. But there's some automation things they put in there, but they don't really totally automate the job. So especially like on pen testing, it's a little harder to automate, because when you look at pen testing web application, you could be using the same authentication. You could be using Node.js, two applications doing the same thing, but the logic flow, business logic is totally different. So that changes. So the automation piece is really hard, and that's not the case. So don't be worried about that. And you just have to also don't let anyone discourage you, because I've had people also ask me, do I have to start out in a SOC? Do I have to be network security help desk or desktop support before I get into security? No, you don't have to do that. I've known people that were pool cleaners that went from cleaning swimming pools to educating themselves through, taking different pen testing certifications, and got hired as a pen tester without experience. So don't let anyone discourage you from that. If you look at my journey, whenever I was getting started, there really weren't any pen tester jobs, or hardly any. And I didn't know about it at the time. So, you don't have to spend 6 years as a sysadmin to learn the sysadmin stuff. I mean, that's, you can learn what you need to learn in, 6 months to a year or less. So don't let any of that discourage you. Just, some people are, you'll run across some people who've had bad experiences, and they think that's the way it is for everyone, but that's not the case. So just kind of try to filter out the negativity, because there was one guy that had to unfollow on LinkedIn, because I've known people that have gotten security jobs with zero hands-on experience, just academic experience or self-study. But this guy said there's impossible to get a job without experience. Anytime I posted something or shared a resource, this guy would show up saying that. And I finally unfollowed him because it's like, I see why you're not getting a job is you're negative. You got to be positive. When you're totally negative all the time, if you tell yourself you're not good enough, you're going to convince yourself. So I just kind of remove that guy from LinkedIn because I didn't want other people that are trying to get started to hear his negativity and discourage them. So someone said, is it necessary to learn programming on expert level to get started in cybersecurity? It's not needed to get started, but it's good to have. So be able to do Python scripting is helpful. So one of the things that I would say is, try to get into security and then learn as you go along. Python is pretty popular. Golang is a good one as well. But yeah, it's not necessary to start out. There's a lot of tools, and a lot of the tools have changed that really, because when I got started in pen testing, it was already this way. You had different tools that you could use that you didn't have to be able to write tools. You had a Hydra to brute force passwords. At one point in time, that tool didn't exist, and someone would have to write a Python script to do the same thing. And, Burp Suite makes it easy to brute force password logins and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of tools out there that make life easier, and like Metasploit. So you don't have to know how to program, but if it's something you want to do it, and it can be helpful. So kind of start learning that, but don't wait until you're, an expert at programming before you try to get a job. Someone said, can you please give me an idea to start API penetration testing, please? I would look for anything you could find by Alyssa Knight. She's got some videos and stuff on API pen testing, and actually XSS Rat has an API pen testing course on Udemy. So that you might check out. Also, to get practice with API pen testing is check out Juice Shop, because Juice Shop is a vulnerable application and has a lot of API stuff in there. You can even do SQL injection through API, and there's walkthroughs from the creator's website, as well as some other people have done walkthroughs on Juice Shop that will show you how to exploit some of those API features. So recommendations on updating knowledge on real world attacks. So just kind of follow what you're seeing out there. I mean, like on Twitter is one of my favorite places to get information, because when consultants or security researchers come out with stuff, usually they post on Twitter first. So that's a good place there. It's maybe not as new, but MITRE ATT&CK is a good place to learn some of the different type of attacks that are being used out there. So that's another good resource. But I would highly recommend Twitter, because there was, with the Log4j, there was all sorts of good. I mean, that was probably one of the best coverages I've seen, because I think Black Hills Information Security had something on it. Also, Bishop Fox, John Hammond did a room for Try Hack Me and a walkthrough on Log4j. And so that's what I would do. I would just, find some good people to follow out there, and then just kind of keep up with some security professionals on Twitter. You can find this stuff on LinkedIn, but the thing I like about Twitter is you don't have to be connected to someone for things to show up in your feed. You can follow certain subjects on Twitter and you'll see that information. But I'd highly recommend keeping up with that. Another thing I would do too is, keeping up with the latest attacks. That's where one of the things that I don't do the best. And I was interviewing last year for a pen testing role, and they asked me about a recent attack, and I really hadn't kept up with it. So that's an incentive to keep up with the news, because you may get a senior manager that maybe they're not technical anymore, but they may ask you about certain news items and different breaches and attacks and stuff. So that's some really great questions.
Yeah. So I hope the questions are over. So feel free to connect Phillip Wyile through his, he already mentioned the links over there. You can see all the links on Linktree. So it's time to wind up then, sir.
Okay. And I'm going to just go
Thank
ahead
you.
to make
Thank
it
you so
easy.
much for the very inspiring talk. Yeah,
An honor.
sir.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah, on behalf of the RedTeam organizers and all the audience, I would like to thank you. Looking forward to have some engaging, real, the kind of engagement sessions like this
Yeah,
in near future as well.
yeah, please let me know. I'd be happy.
Sure thing. Thank you so much, sir. See you then. Happy New Year and Christmas. Thank you.